the royal couple want to set up a production company with the headline, "The Duke and Duchess of Netflix." Senior royals are said to be concerned about the kinds of commercial deals that the Sussexes could strike. That's in The Times. While Prince Charles is set to fund the Duke and Duchess of Sussex for a year, according to The Telegraph. The Metro reports on Harry and Meghan's exit from the royal family and Prince Andrew's first public appearance with the Queen since he quit public life last year. And The Sun says Prince Harry and Prince William have ended their 2-year fallout after holding what it describes as secret peace talks. Away from the royals, the Financial Times reports on the nervousness amongst businesses after the Chancellor announced that the UK would diverge from EU rules after Brexit. And The Guardian alleges that the daughter of a former Angolan president was able to build up a huge personal fortune on the back of the country's oil wealth, claims which she denies. So Christina Patterson and Brendan O'Neill here with me tonight, and a lot of Harry and Meghan on the front pages once again. You've picked out the Daily Express, first of all, that's been very quick to respond to a speech that Prince Harry just gave tonight. We only got footage at about 10 o'clock tonight, so Daily Express very speedy to make that their front page story. So what are they saying?
Well, this story is running and running, isn't it? And Harry went to one of his favourite charities tonight and gave a speech and basically said, "I didn't get what I want," which I think is quite graceless, actually. I think he has, I have been a big fan of Prince Harry, and I have every sympathy for the nightmare he went through in losing his mother when he was just a child, the relentless press scrutiny, and the fact that he feels that the press essentially hounded his mother to death. And clearly he's determined to make sure the same doesn't happen to his wife and son, and that's entirely understandable. However, I think they've been very unwise in announcing what they did before it was agreed with the palace, at which point they basically said, "We want to have our cake and eat it. We want to retain our royal status, act for the Queen when we feel like it on behalf of the Queen, and build up our own brands and have our own financial independence." And of course, this is pioneering territory, but you can't do all those things. You can't be the Prince of Netflix and also representing the royal family. And there will be rows brewing, I'm sure, about the Sussex royal brand that they've already safeguarded for themselves. But I think given that the statement only went out on, was it Friday, when the Queen made her statement, a very generous statement, I think, offering her every support and sympathy to Harry.
I think it was last night, wasn't it?
Was it last night? I lost all track. But I think to then say straight away, "This isn't what I wanted," I think apart from anything else, bad manners. And I think bad manners has been the trademark all the way through.
Well, and just to put it in his words, because he obviously said it isn't what I wanted, like that. He said, "It brings me great sadness that it's come to this, the choice to step back from royal duties." He said it's one it's not made lightly. And he also said, "I want to make clear we're not walking away. We certainly aren't walking away from you," talking to a friendly audience there. "Our hope was to continue serving the Queen, the Commonwealth and my military associations, but without public funding. Unfortunately, that wasn't possible." So do you think he's saying, "I didn't get what I wanted," in those terms? Or do you think he's saying, "We really, really wanted to be able to carry on doing good works and support the Queen, but it really wasn't possible with this new status that we had"?
Yeah, I think he is saying he didn't get what he wanted, and I agree with Christina that I think it's pretty graceless. And to come out and say that so speedily after the Queen made her statement, which was a much more gracious statement, I think is just wrong. And I think Harry should have known better, in fact. Lots of people are saying, well, people warned Meghan about the royal family. She should have known what life in the royal family was like. It's understandable that life in the royal family would be a shock to an outsider, and so I can understand if she felt that it was a bit disorientating. But Harry has been in the royal family since birth. He must know you can't mix commercial deals with being a royal, and one of the reports claims on the front of the Times is that apparently Meghan was going to do a deal potentially with Givenchy, the fashion house, which they're denying. There's the discussion about them setting up a production company. I mean, Harry must have known. You can't be a global corporation and a member of the House of
But
Windsor.
some might say, some of their supporters might say, is it not laudable that they don't want to take public funds and the only alternative is to raise the money themselves, and they still want to carry on supporting the country and doing good work?
I'm afraid I don't think there's much indication they do want to carry on supporting the country and doing good work. If they wanted to support the country, they would stay in the country. Instead of which they're going to be clocking up the air miles and the carbon footprint by jetting all over the place. I think, to be fair, and I honestly do want to be fair to them because I really genuinely want them to be happy together. I don't think the omens are particularly good, but I do hope that they will be happy together in their new life. I think they are pretty confused about what they want. I think they think they want privacy, but their commercial value is entirely dependent on their celebrity because that's all they have to offer.
But do they feel they might be able to control that a bit more if they're...
Well, good luck with that. Good luck with that, because most people who are celebrities discover you can't control that. The whole point of that, you do make a kind of pact with the devil if your commodity, if the commodity you're selling is your celebrity, and I'm afraid Harry has no other commodity to sell, and Meghan has a commodity as an actor, which she presumably will not be selling anymore, then I'm afraid that depends on not just your own control, but other people's perception of you. And if you really want to do good, go and do lots of charity work in secret and don't have it splashed all over the front pages. But if you want your charity work splashed over the front pages, then I'm afraid that's not charity work, that's PR.
Although it's PR for a charity which you think will do good.
Well, it may or may not do good. It may or may not do good. But, it might not be a bad idea to get on with the people closest with you first before trying to appeal to, all these people you've never met before.
OK, I'm going to take you two by surprise because I'm going to show the Mirror next, which is not what you chose, but because they've rebranded their front page. When we looked at the papers an hour ago, they had a story about the royals, but it wasn't this one. So they've now reflected the fact that Prince Harry has spoken out publicly. He's given statements, of course, since this new deal has been struck, hasn't he? But this is the first time we saw him in
I think...
They're responding to that.
Yeah, I think part of the problem for Harry and Meghan, and I think one of the reasons they might have, Harry might have made this speech this evening, and they put it on Instagram and so on. I think they might have been a bit taken aback by the public response because the Harry and Meghan thing has actually exposed a really important divide in this country between, on the one side, you kind of have this woke PC elements of the chattering class who think Harry and Meghan are wonderful and love the idea they will become these globe-trotting dispensers of correct thinking on all sorts of issues or whatever else, or, even do-gooders, global do-gooders, whatever they want to be. Then on the other side, there are huge numbers of people, as was revealed in a poll last week, who are thinking, well, what about the Queen? What about the royal family? What about duty and loyalty to the nation? So it's actually revealed, the kind of tensions that have been growing since the vote for Brexit, really. But it has revealed some of those tensions. And I think actually where you stand on Harry and Meghan tells us a lot about where you stand in relation to lots of other things as well.
You're almost implying that I would be a Brexiteer then, and heaven forbid, Brendan.
You should come over to our side.
He's trying a very subtle approach there, Christina. I'm not sure if it'll work. Let's move on to the front page of The Times, because they are touching on one of the issues that you reflected on there, and the question of how they can maintain this financial independence. The headline, Royal Fears over deals the Sussexes could strike. And he did say in his statement yesterday, didn't he, that they'd be very mindful to be respectful towards the royal family in any future business.
Very cleverly chosen word, Anna. Mindful is exactly right. I'm sure that it will be full of mindfulness.
I don't think it was the word they used.
and all of that stuff. I think they have trademarked this Sussex Royal brand. They've got web developers and copywriters and no doubt lawyers and so on board with it. It's cheeky because they are renouncing their royal duties and wanting to keep the name. So I think that Buckingham Palace will probably be right to question this, because you can't say the British royal family, who, by the way, are not living in the UK, not doing any royal duties, are keeping that brand and going to use that to strike whatever deals they want. I think the other thing that unfortunately, it seems to me likely to be the case. I'm sure there is plenty of money to be made in the short term, and good luck to them, genuinely good luck to them, because they have an expensive lifestyle and they will need lots of money. But unfortunately, youth, beauty and star quality doesn't last forever, and particularly when your star quality is literally because you are famous and you are royal, that is likely to fade. And this is not Edward and Mrs. Simpson, but it might, in 20 years, it might look not far off it.
And they have agreed that they won't use their royal titles, haven't they? And we don't really know what they want, do we? We're guessing to a certain extent the kind of life they want, but the one message that we are getting is that they want more privacy and they want to be a bit more normal. That's the sense we get. Is there anything wrong with that? There are people who would say that's very understandable.
I mean, if they really wanted to be normal, though, they'd go away and be normal. I mean, this is not normal behaviour for most people. It's not normal to be incredibly famous. It's not normal to jet around the world. It's not normal to give lectures about people's carbon footprint from the pulpit of Vogue magazine. This is not normal by any stretch of the imagination. I just think that their life is probably going to become less normal as a consequence of this, and I think they must know by any stretch of the imagination. I just think that their life is probably going to become less normal as a consequence of this, and I think they must know that at some level. They're going to become a global brand. They will be incredibly famous, even more so perhaps, and I agree with Christina, it could potentially be short-lived. But if they want privacy, this is not the way to go about it. If they really wanted privacy, they would retire from public life, get normal jobs and be normal people.
Well, who knows what steps they will take next. It'll be interesting to watch, won't it? But lots of discussion about financial independence, and what they might do. But at the heart of this is also a family drama, you could say, or a sad family story. Front page of The Sun, though, picks up on this with what they are billing as quite good news. They suggest that there's been some kind of rapprochement between the brothers.
Well, I really hope that's true, because I think it's incredibly sad that these two young men who lost their mother when they were children, if they had also fallen out with each other, as seemed to be the case, not just from press reports, well, largely from press reports, but if that did happen, that's very sad, because we all.
I think Harry himself did talk about taking a different
path. He did in that documentary with Tom Bradby. So. Yes, I think, if this has been repaired, that's good. What is sad in this report is that apparently there is a rift with Prince Charles and Harry, and that's a shame, because I think they've always been very close. I just really hope they can repair all these relationships, but I don't think that Harry is going about it in the right way by instantly making statements that are at odds or disagreeing with the public statements that have been very carefully agreed and issued.
And is there a generational thing here, the way it's handled? I mean, younger generations are much more open about how they're feeling, and it's a way they feel of being transparent, whereas older generations, perhaps particularly in the royal family, they're more likely to keep their feelings to themselves.
Well, one of the things that Meghan said last year, I think, was that she struggled with a stiff upper lip when Tom Bradby was asking her how was she feeling and so on, and she said, well, no one's asked me if I'm okay. I actually think that is a generational thing, and I think that generation, they take selfies, they advertise their emotions, they're online all the time, whereas the Queen's generation are very stiff upper lip and they keep it all inside. But I do think that, the Meghan thing of no one asks me if I'm okay, I think that's one of the things that kind of grates the public a little bit, because, of course, in their minds, you are okay, you've got a huge mansion, you've got loads of money, you're well known, you fly around the world.
And it doesn't buy you happiness.
No, it doesn't buy you happiness, but I do think a lot of people who struggle to make ends meet will think, well, why don't you ask if we're okay?
Okay, we'll take a break at that point. We'll talk about non-royal issues after the break, including how prejudice is stopping plans to erect a statue of Joseph Merrick, the Elephant Man, in Leicester, apparently. We'll be talking about that shortly. Spiked Brendan O'Neill. And we're going to turn inside the Times next, and a story here that, the headline is Name Police Officer Who Failed Child Abuse Victim. And as I understand it, this is after the Times said that they'd seen a document that had been kept confidential about police handling of a child sex abuse inquiry. So what is the MP now saying?
Well, Sarah Champion has said that she cannot believe that Manchester South Yorkshire Police really can't find out who these policemen and possibly women, but it seems to be largely men, are who have, been claimed to be unidentifiable. Andrew Norfolk in the Times did a fantastic investigation in 2011, I think, about the absolute scandal of mass child abuse, largely of Asian men, Pakistani heritage men who were serially abusing children, actually, largely white children. And the allegation seems to have been that thousands, literally thousands of cases were ignored by the police because they felt it was too explosive, that it would cause too many racial tensions for these men to be investigated. And the net result of that is, I think in Manchester alone, something 1,400, this was in the Rotherham one, 1,400 children have been subjected to sexual abuse between 1997 and 2013. And this is an absolute disgrace. So good on Sarah Champion for continuing.
Very quickly, because I want to try and switch.
Yeah, I think Sarah Champion's really putting her neck on the line here. And, it's not only the Rotherham case, which is the one she's talking about, but there was Manchester, which was revealed last week. And I think there's a real problem, the way in which these kind of largely Pakistani gangs, very often largely Muslim gangs, it was kept hidden because they thought it would stir up racial insensitivity. And as a consequence, girls went on being abused. That's a real, proper scandal. The fact that it isn't being talked about more and it's not on the front pages of the papers more, I think is a real problem. It's almost like we don't care about the victims because they're just white working class girls, and we don't want to talk about the perpetrators because they're largely from Pakistani heritage groups, and that makes us uncomfortable in the era of multiculturalism. So we need an open debate about all of this.
Okay, let's move on to another story regarding Leicester, and this is inside the Times as well. This is, well, the headline is "Leicester's ugly enough," says Elephant Man statue critic. So,
yes, well, we thought this was going to be a funny story, but it isn't actually. Joseph Merrick, who was called the Elephant Man, a man who had was sort of seriously deformed and had major disabilities, and a famous film was made about him. His biographer has wanted a statue to be erected to him because he was a man of incredible courage and dignity, but there are apparently objections with people saying in the local paper, Leicester's already ugly enough without this ugly man. And Alison Lapper, who has herself a disability and a statue was made of her, and in Trafalgar Square has said actually attitudes haven't changed all that much.
Yeah, and I mean, the good part of the story is that lots of people are saying, let's have this statue, including Alison Lapper, who says Joseph Merrick was an incredibly inspirational person. He got out of the workhouse, he got out of being exposed in fun fairs and put on display and so on, and actually made something of his life. And I think that's an inspirational story worth a statue.
Okay, and we will end on that note. Lovely to see you both as usual. Thanks very much indeed.